Imagine you're cooking dinner tonight and you get distracted, whether it's the kids or your partner or whatever, life happens and you get distracted. Imagine you were cooking, I don't know, lamb chops, for instance, and you get distracted and you go off and do something else. And then it's like, they're chops. And you head back to check them out and you realize that they're burned. My question for you today is, who gets the burned chop? And I'm sure, I am 99% certain you just said to yourself, well, I do. Why? Why do you give yourself the burned chop? And I call it the burnt chop syndrome. And it's actually, this comes from my book, The 7 Steps to Sanity, which is where I talk about preventing burnout in the workplace. And I wanted to talk about it here today because it is just so common. And generally what sits behind you eating that burnt chop is that you don't want to look bad in front of others. True? What is it for you? Just kind of contemplate that for a moment. Why do you eat the burnt chop or the thing or whatever that thing is that it's like, oh, fuck, that didn't work. I'll do it. I'll eat it. I'll put up with it. What I've found is that, yeah, generally it's someone, you're not wanting to look bad in front of someone, or on some level you think you don't deserve to have the good chop and give someone else a bad chop. And women, we're the worst. We're the worst at this. And it's like we're programmed to look after everyone else before we look after ourselves. And so it's like, well, the kid's got to be fed right. Partner's got to be fed right. I'll eat the burnt chop. Generally what happens is that you're then also doing the negative self-talk, like, oh, I can't waste this meat, or I can't waste this, whatever it is. And you do the guilt and really, I can't eat. I'm juggling all these balls and doing all this stuff, but I still can't even just cook the meal right. And I find that people do negative emotions like guilt and they give themselves a hard time. And the reality is that negative emotions like guilt change your body chemistry from being alkaline to acidic in a split second, in an absolute split second. So all I care about is if you choose to eat the burnt chop, you've got to get your head around it. That's really important. So yeah, women usually do it really bad. What I know is that baby boomers, so I'm nearly 60, I'm a baby boomer. We do it worse than the younger people today. The younger women today would just go, oh, toss it, or here, you can have it. The young women that I've experienced and younger people that I've experienced, they won't just put up with stuff like we do. My generation does. And they're on the right track. They're just on the right track where we'll just go, yeah, okay. And you eat the burnt chop or whatever it is. I'm just using that as kind of a visual, and I'm vegetarian. I don't eat burnt chops, but it's that thing. We do it and then we give ourselves a hard time because we screwed up. That's it. So what is the alternative? Well, this is it. I'm going to give you a couple of alternatives. Imagine you've got this burnt chop. You could scrape off the charcoal, turn it over, cover it with mint sauce or gravy or whatever you're doing, and they won't know the difference. There's one. But if you're going to, again, if that's the choice you make, you've got to be just like, hey, I'm making this more flavorsome for them, instead of going, oh, I'm just going to hide this because that's got negative emotions. Or the one I love is that you can just admit your imperfection and go, burnt the chops. Who likes burnt chops? Now, for me, I'm the kind of person who puts the toast down like 3 times in the toaster. I love my toast lightly charred and crunchy. Oh, I can't deal with soggy toast. I just can't. And so for me, if someone said to me, woohoo, do you want the burnt one or do you want the soggy one? Every time I'm going to go, give me the burnt one. That's what I love, flavor-wise, crunch kind of consistency-wise, texture-wise as well. So we don't know what someone loves or wants. We find people just going, oh, screwed up, I'll eat it, and then swallow down all the emotions with it. And it's just not cool. What I found is when we do that, how we do one thing is how we do everything. It translates into our work life as well. It doesn't matter what kind of work you're doing, but it does. We do it. So someone says, like you're already busy, slammed, busy, all that kind of stuff. And someone says, hey, can you do this for me? You go, yeah. And you say, yeah, but you don't really say yes, because you want to say no, and then you swallow down the emotion. And what happens is all of a sudden now I've just got to do this one more thing. Or it's like, I've got to skip lunch today so I can do this extra thing, or what it is, or you're finishing work, you say, I'll just stay an extra hour, but that hour is where you'd usually go to the gym. And then you're too tired to go and do the gym or go and catch up with friends or do whatever it is. We take these extra things on and do the emotional burnt chop syndrome and run the negative emotions like guilt. The end result is you're too tired, you're too busy, you're too bloody everything to look after you. And there's no way you can be as productive. There's no way you can be as healthy if you do those kind of things. I've got a really close friend who's a divine soul, but she gets so focused on her work and looking after everyone else before she looks after herself that she totally forgets even to eat. She gets to the end of the day, she either hasn't eaten or she's grabbed whatever kind of shit food was in front of her at work, and just to keep her energy going. And the end result is that she's running tired in life all the time. And everyone's got a choice. We really do. If you are the kind of person who thinks, I'm going to eat my lunch on the run while I'm working, whoa, that would be a really powerful place to start. Even if you took 15 minutes, which is 1% of your day, to move away from your desk. Move away from your desk, everybody. I work from home, but I'm out and I'll do a lap of my garden. I do things about every hour to hour and a half to totally recharge my vibe. That self-care is so important. And the question is, would you ever subject someone else to this kind of behavior or regime? You wouldn't. You wouldn't say to someone, just eat the burnt one, would you? You wouldn't. You'd do that. You would want them to look after themselves. So what is the solution? Being human, knowing we can all go off track. We've all done this kind of thing probably in the past. In my book, The 7 Steps to Sanity, I talk about putting the oxygen mask on you first. Now, this is what we do on an airplane. The very first part of the safety thing is, if things go to crap, save yourself first, then save the kids. Why? Because you can't save anyone else. You can't help anyone else if you don't help yourself first. The burnt chop syndrome doesn't work. So we need to do that. And what I know is that we teach other people how to treat us. We do that by them seeing how we treat ourselves. And when we do that, we attract the right people in our lives to treat us the way that we want to be treated. So if you've got people who are always dumping stuff on you and do this and you eat the burnt chop, all that kind of stuff, think about seeing it as a mirror. And I've talked about mirrors in a past episode. Think about doing, changing your vibe so they see you treat yourself differently by saying, no, all good. I'm completing this first, get back to you, and go back to listen to that podcast where I talk about mirrors and saying no. I'll actually put the links in the show notes for you to make it easy. That's it. There's nothing more important than that. There just isn't. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but I want to be selfless. I want to help other people. And I get it. I totally live a life of service. I really do. And I'm really aware of being selfless. Selfless is where you help other people without any kind of hook attached to it. You're not looking for someone to, I've done this for you, so you should do it for me. It's not that. What you want to do is to still be selfless and take care of yourself at the same time. You can still be incredibly generous and kind and still get that you deserve to look after yourself. If this is a new concept to you, I really encourage you to go back to episode 53, where I interview the gorgeous Kim Morrison, who is the queen of self-care. I know in my younger years, I was the queen of burnt chop bloody syndrome, which is all why it's in my book. And for me, I needed to learn to respect myself enough to look after me and put the oxygen mask on me first. It's why it's in the very first chapter of my book. It's what was one of the first steps I did to get my life back in control when I went so off track in my 20s. So the healthy life hacks for this episode, guys, are pretty simple. Think about the oxygen mask on the plane. Put the oxygen mask on you first. The next healthy life hack is to really be aware of how you're showing up in the world, and you can really see it by the way others are treating you. They're treating you the way you're treating yourself. So if you want to be treated with more respect, you've got to start respecting yourself. And what I've found is the healthy life hack number 3 is that practicing self-care is essential. It's just something that has to happen for us to be able to really live a life where we're balanced. And it starts with us. You deserve not to have the burnt chop. But if you enjoy the burnt chop, eat it, love it, and get on with it. And if you're not the person who loves the burnt chops, toss it in the bin, because I get budgets and all that kind of stuff. That's not the thing. But I know the damage it will do to you emotionally and physically by eating the burnt chop and then giving yourself a hard time for it. And that is not worth it. So if you want to get a copy of the show notes, head over to healthylifehacks.com.au. And in the next episode, I'm going to be talking about what the difference is between living a reasonable life or an extraordinary life.